So yeah, as you can see from the title of the video, it's going to be a little bit of basically a house overview of One Way Bridge Perfumes. Now I'm only going to give a brief kind of description, obviously go check out the website for more information, but basically a house started by Elise in New Zealand. It's obviously a faraway land to us here, our land of Middle Earth and hobbitses. No, and much more than that. But what the house kind of does for me briefly is it brings this kind of the natural beauty of New Zealand, and it also brings a lot of Elise's own personality and her own experiences through the perfumes. And there's a couple of houses I've obviously fallen in love with over the last year or so, and this is right up there. So anyway, enough waffle. Do go check out her page. Obviously she offers not only spray perfumes, but there's these new wonderful kind of solid perfumes as well. Anyway, I will get into it. So first up is a fragrance called Polly. Now this is how I first discovered the brand a couple of years ago, and I think I won the oil in a giveaway. I can't remember, it's that long ago. Anyway, the oil is exceptionally beautiful, exceptionally green. But obviously I'll be talking mainly about the samples and the sprays, obviously the ones I've bought. But Polly is like a representation of to me anyway, the New Zealand countryside. It's beautiful, it's green. It's got lots of notes that I don't know what they are in it, which I'm kind of presuming are all the kind of plants and flowers that grow in New Zealand. It's easier for me to, because of that, to kind of describe what I get from it. It is like walking along New Zealand, like them big fields we see on the TV with the mountains on the horizon, little streams. Much better than this, put it that way. And you smell the mossy greenness, the slightly moist, dewy grass, the cool, crisp air. And that's kind of the best way for me to describe it. You get certain similarities with things we smelled before, you know, like, wouldn't surprise me if there's something similar to vetiver, patchouli, but also kind of, I don't know how to describe it, like these plants, but the New Zealand version of it. And you get this, what I can smell now is there's been a storm the last couple of days, it's just been raining, but I imagine a much kind of greener, verdant, sweeter smell than what I can smell. But yeah, that's Polly. Next is one called The Typographer's Daughter, which always makes me think of The Blower's Daughter, the song, if you've heard that. This has quite a deep kind of meaningful thing. Again, what I would recommend is you go read up the inspirations behind these. I'm not going to get too much into that, but this is you've walked from them plains with the mountains in the background, and now you've walked into maybe a bit more of like a forest, and I see a blue sapphire lake, a dark lake. You kind of smell it almost. But because you've walked into a forest, you get more of a fruity feel as well as all the green. There's something like orange blossom, like that rich warmth. There's something like mimosa, you know, that kind of furry, dry, sweet smell. And obviously these are all the New Zealand things. And the kind of forest fruit smell, but not your sweet, dark forest fruits. You know, you kind of the ones you don't eat, basically. But give off an absolutely gorgeous, magical aroma. And it's just, again, it's much easier for me to kind of describe this than the notes, because again, I don't know what a lot of the notes are. And it just takes you to this beautiful, again, maybe a bit of a walk like this, but obviously the forests are lusher and denser and covered in colours. And on top of that, you get like this like fizzy pear drop feel in it, which is absolutely gorgeous. And I really quite like this one. Again, the greenness, but with the fruitiness. Yeah, like I say, a good spring one. That's The Typographer's Daughter. So next up from the house is She's a Kiwi honey. Now, as you can imagine, this one of the main notes in it is a kind of honey note, but as the name implies, it's a very New Zealand kind of honey thing. And what this reminds me of, similar to the others, is it's got a little bit of that kind of botanical green feel. It makes me think of going into one of them greenhouses with all the trees and the fruits there. It's very green, it's very lovely. And it also has this greenness added to by a sweetness from the kiwi. And it's really fresh, and it's got an effervescence in there. You don't get a lot of it, but there is a little bit of a fizz, a little bit of a dry fizz, and that's the champagne note, I believe. It's not there greatly, but it's under it all, giving it a brightness and a life. And it's not your usual sticky, over the top, thick honey. It's a very bright, very fresh, like where the bees would make honey, isn't it, if you like. So that's a She's a Kiwi. So yeah, this one is quite an interesting one. This one, Blackstrap Betty, is basically, it's this fragrance based around molasses or treacle, as we kind of have it in the UK, black treacle, and coffee basically. It's not overly complicated, this one actually, but it is the darkest, blackest, most beautiful treacle. Makes me think of bonfire kind of toffee, which is treacle here, and also mixed with this really bitter coffee, and the way the two mix together just creates this beautiful blackness with the bitter edge. There's a kind of smoky edge from the birch. It's just absolutely gorgeous. I didn't think I'd like this as much as I did. Not a favourite, but I did really enjoy it. But the sweetness, the bitterness and the dark blackness all together works really, really well. So yeah, that's Blackstrap Betty. Next is of course one of my favourites, and that's called Top Shelf. Now this is a complete change of direction. This is big, hairy lumberjack man. This is kind of influenced by Elisa's idea of a dream fella. So he's coming to the pub after hard days at work. There's a smell of the burning embers. There's a smell of all the alcohol in the air, you know, the carpets, in the woodwork, and all of that, and a little nice smell of tobacco as well, pipe tobacco. And it kind of brings you this image of this pub full of men who've been out working. Well, and women, there's no need for that. But it's that kind of slight dirtiness that makes you think of hairy chests and beards and things like that. It's quite a magnificent fragrance, this. One you wouldn't expect to be very me, but it is. I've also got the solid of this. I've just spoken about that. It's the same, but the kind of little bit of this kind of creaminess, making it a little smoother from the solid. So that's Top Shelf. Next up is kind of, if you like, it will be the partner of Top Shelf, and that's Date with a Dame. And this was apparently Elisa's first creation. Well, what a first creation. This is my favourite. This is the one I bought straight away. And it's it doesn't have cherry in it, but cherry's one of the main notes to me. It'd be from the way the other notes interact. And it's cherry, ambrette. There's a lovely tuberose in it, so as you can imagine, it's this bold, beautiful, bombastic fragrance. It's also got a little kind of boozy quality in it. You know, it's red lipstick. It's big personality. It's one of them that's really going to get you noticed. And with the floral aspects and that sweet fruity feel, this obviously has my name written all over it, and hence why I got it. But it's an absolutely stunning fragrance. So that's Date with a Dame. As you can see, these are getting a touch briefer because, yeah, it's lashing it down. But there are reviews. I don't promote myself, but there are reviews of these elsewhere from other people and from myself. This again is another kind of pubby one. but very different to Top Shelf. Top Shelf has a certain amount of sensuality in this, and Stout and Smoke literally smells like this. I used to work in, it was the oldest pub in Durham as it happens, and obviously everywhere, reek's the wrong word, but the alcohol's clung to everywhere, particularly the cellars. And obviously we serve real ales and dark beers and stouts and all that sort of stuff, so it really reminds me of the cellars and all the kind of the tobacco of a couple 200-300 years, all in the wood with this alcohol. And it's kind of even a little bit dirty, but not quite, but you know what I mean, like a really old pub. Very pleasant smell, and that's what Stout and Smoke is to me. And it's obviously got oodles of tobacco and them sweeter notes to make the stout, the kind of slight burnt bitter edge. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. Again, one you wouldn't think for me, and probably would be a bit too strong for me, but a magnificent fragrance nonetheless. Stout and Next we have a Rose from Miss. Now this one is actually quite interesting. It's the only one that I didn't really gel with, because that's what we know what I'm like with roses. It's a very green kind of sharp rose, and the way I kind of saw this is a rose on a mountain. It's cold, it's crisp, it's green, it's a little bit dewy, but you also get this kind of, it's not orris I don't think, but this kind of muddy clay thing, like this one rose is growing by itself in the mud, the little bits of green moss and that round it, and it's quite a lonely, cold, miserable rose. But it's not, that's not what the fragrance smells like, that's just my image. And it's a beautiful rose fragrance at the end of the day. For those of us who like a crisper, more natural green rose, absolutely perfect. Sadly it didn't gel with me. So the final one, a bit of luck of when it arrived, is Dynasty. And this one is very different from all of the rest. This one is primarily kind of, it's like, if you like, a fabric softener, washing on the line kind of fragrances. And in it is a lot of musks and a lot of accords that kind of create that. And I also get this slight indolic touch in there, in the kind of, I'm thinking jasmine, but like a greener floral. And it just takes you back to being a child, playing in the garden, and the smell of the washing on the line as it steadily gets drier and drier, and the same with them kind of musks. It's quite a beautiful one, this. So yeah, that's the final one so far, Dynasty. So yeah, just a little brief overview. More maybe to come as they sort of come in, and I'll always keep up to date with this house. I love it. The more I smell, the more I love it. So what about you? What are these kind of best fragrances you've discovered from New Zealand or far away, places we don't normally associate with perfume? Do you have a favourite from this house? Do you love Elisa's more greener, natural smelling ones, or these bolder, fun, really quite unique ones that she brings out that reflect her personality? What about other fragrance houses that kind of bring us the smell of the place where they're from, and that? Things like Dosita, I suppose, are a good example. But alright, it's getting a touch too windy in it, so thanks folks, thanks for watching, bye.
Hi guys, here I am finally.